Let's deal with that nature. Let's continue to evolve as a species that controls that nature, that makes more beneficial things instead of less beneficial things, based off logic, rationale, and empathy, instead of appeals to a deity that is not there for a messed up system of justification and compensation, only to atone for his inability at the onset. That's how I've gotten through these thoughts. That's how I've rationalized this. And I have to tell you, it's beyond empowering and helpful to take the reins from this inept and inexistent God. To Mindshift. I'm Brandon. I got a comment, and this is something I haven't done much of, but I'd like to reply to comments in video fashion sometimes. I try to interact with so many comments, and I try to answer best that I can, but sometimes there's one that's open-ended enough that I really want to be able to take my time with. So today we have a comment from the Thinking Failure, and I asked if it was okay if I shared this, and he said yes. So here it is. Brandon, dude, I am exactly where you were, and I gotta say I was heated too when you were. I am going through everything you were saying. The problem is I don't want to deconvert or stop being a Christian. I want to believe that this maximally great being exists and loves me. Did you struggle with that? Also, if there is no God in any religion, what happens to unpunished evil? Naturalism doesn't offer anything. The problem of evil still exists in the world, even if God is not true, unless we just say evil isn't a real thing. Like, what would your opinion be? By the way, this was a comment left on my deconversion video, and it's two excellent points, and I think it's something that most people who are going through a doubting process or a deconstruction or deconverting definitely think about. I think to the level that they think about it or care about it probably comes down to personality and variables within their life, etc. I definitely thought about both of these things quite a bit during my own journey. So I feel like I have at least an opinion. Not saying it's the right one here, but this is how I handled these concepts. 1, I didn't want to deconvert either. It sucks. Why would anybody of any mindset want to completely change their life, completely upend it against the status quo, against the norm, against what everyone who they love and who loves them and who they have history with has believed the same? They wouldn't. It's not natural. The problem is, I think many people associate that resistance with God pulling them back, with the truth of the matter, as opposed to looking and calling it what it really is. It's an adverseness to change. It's a potential loss. It's a difficulty. It's a disruption to everything you thought you knew and have hung your hat on. No sane person would be eager and excited to go through this. Now, the difference is some people that are trapped in this, and it's so harmful to them, it's so abusive to them, that when they finally see the light that it's not true, yes, it is definitely the lesser of two evils to go to the unknown, to start again. Maybe there wasn't that much to lose in the first place. You know, as my deconversion video states, I already had kids, I had a wife, every friend that I had in my life was a believer. Almost every single member of my family was a believer. Everyone in our circles was. I was heavily involved in church, etc. So that is a huge disruption from, say, someone who believes, but most of the people in their life actually don't believe. It might actually be easier now to let go of that. But it doesn't sound like that's the case for you. And I get that. But this is the harsh truth of the matter. What you want doesn't matter. It won't change if this is true or not true. And at the end of the day, speaking for myself, that's all that matters here. Now, I've actually changed my mind a little bit on if I would even want there to be this maximally great being. It's hard for me to conceive of what that would really look like when the maximally great being that I used to believe in was Jesus. And now I see how unmaximally great he was. I can't even fashion a concept of what a truly maximally great benevolent being would look like, would act like, what kind of a universe they would create if they even chose to create at all. What level of free will or not free will, how much suffering or not suffering do they allow, things of this nature. What's so clear to me is that if we were created by some supreme being, they are not maximally great. So letting go of that isn't letting go of a maximally great being. It might be letting go of that concept, but that concept is not what is clearly indicated in our reality. And the more that you can separate those two things, the claim of Christianity versus the reality of Christianity, the less hard it is to let go, because the reality does not match the claim. And what you'll find, or at least what I found, is that there's nothing there to lose. It doesn't exist. It's just an idea. And trying to hold on and believe just for the sake of that idea won't make that idea any more real. There's a reason, though, that religion is so attractive. The very concept that you listed here in the comment, someone that loves me. and not just someone great. Humans take value, typically in the opinions of others. So if the greatest other that can ever exist personally created me, personally has a plan for me, and actually loves me, of course you would not want to let that go. In the same way you wouldn't want to let go a parent who raised you and cared for you, who was always in your corner. But again, the difference comes down to, but what is real? Is there evidence that this being exists? And if they were to exist, is there evidence that they are loving, in your corner, value you, etc.? If you've been watching our secular Bible study, you can understand how little Yahweh values his creation. Also the claims of immutability, that this God does not change. We've changed. Our morals have changed. Our interpretation of Scripture has changed. This God has not. And this God is ugly and vindictive and jealous. So there wasn't anything there to lose. Now, again, I understand when you feel like, oh, I wasn't in relationship with Yahweh. I had a relationship with Jesus. Jesus died for me. Jesus loves me. Everything we were indoctrinated with. And it's why I focus so much on the New Testament as well as the Old Testament, because that Jesus that we think is so beautiful is not. So, again, there's just facts. God doesn't exist. Jesus doesn't exist, at least not the supernatural version of Jesus. The Bible's claims are not true. The claims of the Bible that we can test have shown false, and the claims that we can't, we would have no reason to believe in their validity then. You're losing a concept. You're losing an idea. It hurts. It sucks. It's as close to being real as it can get, but it's not real. And you holding on won't make it so. That's my opinion. That's my take on point one. Point two also is going to be an emotionally unappealing answer. Sure, maybe evil doesn't exist because evil dictates some kind of intent. Without a supernatural bad guy like the devil, Satan, some antithesis of God out there doing something bad while God is doing something good, even though God says and claims that he is the author of evil, that he created evil. And also logically, if you just think about it being him and nothing, and then him and everything, that includes everything, Lucifer, evil, hell, all of it. This is all part of God's design. So even thinking that it's somehow beneficial or good that God would judge and eventually punish evil is only correcting his first error. And the second thing, and this might be more philosophical, is to really think, does unpunished evil matter? And by the way, let's then replace evil, for the sake of this conversation, with suffering. Suffering still exists in the world, even in a naturalistic sense. It doesn't mean that everything natural is good or without error. Obviously, there are still bad things. There's still bad circumstances. There are people that do bad things or harmful things or disbeneficial things. Again, I've started putting all of this more into what's beneficial versus disbeneficial, pleasure versus suffering, because I think that it makes way more sense in this naturalistic society, but it doesn't take away that those things happen. Does someone commit a bad action or a less beneficial action and then get away with it? Yeah, they do. Do you really want there to be a God that is weighing all of these things out and offers up some compensation for the good and some torment for the bad? Now, this might come down to different views on justice in general. I really believe, and some of this is because of my philosophy and my understanding of determinism versus free will, etc., that yeah, we can't just let people who are going to do harmful things keep doing them. And if someone is not able to be helped, they might have to be removed from society. And by the way, this is how social structures have worked throughout time. This is the process of minds evolving and grouping together in systems. People got ostracized who didn't fit in with the current version of morality, who did more harm than benefit. But the idea of, say, prison, a punishment system, should be a rehabilitation system, or at least a separation system. I would never want someone to just be tortured forever. That doesn't make anything better. If someone hurts one of my kids, that could be the most rage-filled I'd ever be, where I'd want them to suffer. And still, honestly, I would never ever want anyone to suffer forever, pointlessly and endlessly. I understand, and it's not an excuse, that there were things that happened in that person's life who hurt my children that were out of their control. Maybe they were hurt as a child. Maybe they were born with a brain different than my own. How awful for them. I feel actual sympathy for them. It doesn't mean I want them to hurt my child, or that I would allow it, or that I would excuse it. They need to be separated, or they need to go to a place where they can be rehabilitated. But that's as much as I would wish for them. Them just hurting hoarding forever is not going to fix whatever happened to my kid. That's a very basic view of justice. There's a fantastic book, it's by Nietzsche, on the genealogy of morals. And this view is discussed there a little bit more about our initial response, this limb for limb kind of an idea. But I think you can evolve and grow out of that a little bit more as you understand people with a level of empathy and sympathy. And that the fact is, since none of us chose to be here, chose to have the childhood experiences that we have that shaped us, chose to have the brain or genetics that contributed to how we would think about things and act in the future, we are all victims. That is my understanding now. And I do think it is a grade above God of the Bible's understanding. To compensate you with heaven or someone who does harm with hell doesn't make any sense to me. All we have is this time, this earth. And all we can do is accept the truth of that fact. And the truth of the fact that harm can exist, that things that are less beneficial can exist, and that people can suffer, and do our best to avoid that for ourselves, our loved ones, and even for others. That's my take on it. It's our responsibility. We become the God here to enact the justice, and we can do better than the biblical version of justice. We can feed a hungry person. We can clothe a naked person. We can try to rehabilitate or help, or at worst, separate people who are not contributing, that are not beneficial. This is the prison system, the law system, and it can be done better. I'm a huge proponent of prison reform. We can give better, more wisely. I'm a huge proponent of effective altruism. See, once you remove God from judge and jury over this world, you get your autonomy back, and you can help change the things that you don't like. The problem for me really came in at the idea that God wanted this. God made this world. God had a will that he is seeing through. God had a desire for connection with humans. God had a desire and a plan for people. And this is what we end up with? No, this is what we end up with if nature left to its own accord. So fine, let's deal with that nature. Let's continue to evolve as a species that controls that nature, that makes more beneficial things instead of less beneficial things, based off logic, rationale, and empathy, instead of appeals to a deity that is not there for a messed up system of justification and compensation, only to atone for his inability at the onset. That's how I've gotten through these thoughts. That's how I've rationalized this. And I have to tell you, it's beyond empowering and helpful to take the reins from this inept and inexistent God. I hope my thoughts have been helpful. I understand everything you are saying. I have been where you have been, and here I am on this side. And I don't know if you want to be where I am, but I can tell you from my personal anecdotal experience that it's beautiful, that there's meaning here, that there's understanding here, that there's a higher form of knowledge over here, that there's a desire for truth. And not because I'm saying I'm doing these things. I'm saying these things exist once you get outside of the indoctrination of the closed loop of God. And some people miss them when they leave that loop of God because they are still so torn up about what they've lost instead of seeing what they can gain. So I'm here to show you what you can gain. And what you have to gain is reality. But reality is ultimately neutral, on average at least. There are good things that happen and bad things that happen, harmful things and pleasurable things, etc. But you get to be a part of reality. You get to be here. You're already here. The only thing that's missing is where your thoughts are. Bring your thoughts into this realm, and then bring your actions based off those thoughts into this realm, and things will get better. Religion is a hindrance. Religion is a stopper of action. Religion is a scapegoat. Everything about the way faith and prayer and justice works in the realm of religion takes away from action and autonomy for the individual here. If we all had a little more autonomy and thus action based off that, don't you think this world could get a lot better a lot faster? I really believe that. Maybe it's naive, maybe it's stupid. I'm not saying an atheistic worldview is going to fix everything. I'm saying that an understanding of the limitations of what religion can do and bringing that into our scope of capability and willfulness to do so has the potential to create something better. And I'm very curious and very eager to see us make a go at it. So that's how I would respond to your two questions. Sorry if it was more lengthy than what you wanted. You can see now why I chose not to just try to comment it all below. Thank you for listening. Let me know your thoughts on this. And until next time, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tier Iconoclast patrons, Shawn Skaggs and Jason Rollins, and my Atheist Advocate patron, Jarrod Nichols, for their incredible generosity. And also a big shout out to my Secular Scholar patrons. All other patrons are listed in the description of each video. Please consider joining this group if you enjoy these videos or believe in my mission. Thanks and have a great day.